Blessings, beloveds. Welcome back. And happy Leo season that has begun just a few days ago. Leo season, always such a beautiful time. The sun ingressing into any sign is beautiful. It has its own journey as reflecting really the development of humanity, of human beings, right? So in each month that the sun highlights, illuminates, and gives warmth and light to each archetype, those themes light up, right? That's what the sun does. It lights things up, as does the full moon, of course. So Leo season, okay, and we are also heading towards the Lion's Gate, which you could say is really open from now, really, because the sun has already ingressed into Leo. So the Leo energy has been activated. The Lion's Gate is on the 8th of the 8th. It's always on the same date. And that particular portal reflects magnificent power for the lion heart, the radiance of our own heart. And the Leo season overall reflects that. And so there are many different layers to that, because we have the personality layer of Leo, which is the personality, Madonna personality, personalities, so just people out there on that level on the platform of this 3D reality that have a strong personality that's indeed very Leo. So there is that side of Leo, and which has it has what's the word I'm trying to think of? Glamour, poise, strength. It's an impressive sign. It has, so much confidence when it's operating, at that essential lion Leo level. Of course, with every Leo and with the Leo energy itself, it's not just the one thing, the one archetype that is playing out. It's a number of things that are playing out. But in any case, Leo reminds us of the inner child, the side to life where we need to be engaged in things that we actually enjoy. And that's why Leo season is really powerful from the point of view of it brings our attention back to where in our life are we actually engaging with the heart center, the inner child, and what are we actually doing that makes us feel happy, that we are enjoying. It sounds like a simple thing, but when you look at it in the context of a lot of people's lives, a lot of people are just going through the motions, just working, making money, coming back home, going to sleep, getting back up, doing the same thing again. And so in this consensus 3D reality, we can get so caught up in those systems and sort of really lose sight of that child, because Saturn is the voice of the mature adult, which is a constant reminder of our responsibilities and duties. And if we've got a strong dose of Saturn in our chart, or a strong dose of transiting energies with Saturn at the moment, we can get sort of, Saturn can interfere with that part of life that is meant to be just enjoyed, right? And I personally strongly resonate with that at the moment, because I've got some strong Leo energy in my own chart, and Saturn's just been, it's just been doing a big number in my life and on my chart. And so I'm loving stepping into the Leo season, just because it reminds me as well that even though at the moment there's just such a heavy dose of Saturn going on in different areas of my life, I want to re-engage with the things that are playful and the things that bring me joy, and that's what Leo really reminds us of. And this new moon in Leo is a stark reminder of that, actually. And the reason for that particularly is because I'll just share my screen and actually bring up oops, just expand my little window there. I posted a funny quote the other day on Facebook, and it said, I was just being humorous, you know. It said, when we FaceTime, I'll be looking at myself in the little window, not you. And that was just a quote for Leo season. And yeah, it's funny, right? You've got to laugh at that. It's cute and funny. So this new moon, as you can see right here, it has a very powerful goddess asteroid who is known as Ceres. That's that little black symbol is Goddess Ceres. And there are thousands of asteroids, and I'm learning more and more about many of them as each day goes by, as a matter of fact. But the 4 that I've always worked with, literally from the beginning of when I first started astrology, out of the 4, Ceres is one of them. And I've seen Ceres play out in very real ways in people's lives. It's not an easy energy. It's to make Ceres sound easy and insignificant is, in my opinion, is incorrect, because Ceres is highly significant and it is not an easy energy. You know, it brings up themes like loss and grief. Those are the 2 sort of key words, you know, for the Earth Mother Ceres. She was the mother of Persephone. Her daughter was abducted by Pluto. She made the earth barren because of the amount of pain, anger, suffering, and grief that she was experiencing through the loss of her daughter, right? Loss, grief. And she is the goddess of agriculture, so food. So she brings up these sorts of themes. When my father transcended, I had a Ceres return, like to the minute, the moment that my father left this world, right? So she shows up in painful and important passages in our life. You know, there's no question about that. So from a collective perspective, I think the series with the new moon will bring some challenging themes in for the month, because this is a new moon that is basically highlighting the next month, right? And in 2 weeks' time, when we have a full moon, the full moon will be in Leo Aquarius. Okay, 14 days later, the moon moves around and forms its opposition to the sun. The sun will still be in Leo, the moon will be in Aquarius, and Saturn will be conjunct that full moon, and Ceres will be trailing not too far behind. So even though that's 2 weeks away, I'll come back and talk about that, it is important to think of that in the context of where we are going with this particular lunation cycle, because this lunation cycle is going to be reflected through the full moon that comes up in a couple of weeks' time. And it's interesting to note that it starts off with Ceres, which does speak to loss and separation, and then it gets to its full position with Saturn right there, and Saturn is another body that can correspond to separation as well. So we have this theme of separation in some kind of way that I would imagine would speak to collective issues. And because it's Ceres, you know, there might be some further things going on with food as it's appearing in this 3D reality. You know, the issues that are going on with food collectively at the moment, you know, the prices rising and the lack of crops and stuff like that. And, you know, I heard someone say that if we take the point that this is an engineered situation, which I actually believe it is, you know, these particular entities and systems have made it so difficult, you know, for humanity to be independent, to rely on their own sort of resources, right? By cornering and shutting things down and making it so difficult for people to produce, right? Just to put it very simply. So these are these are real issues. They're going on everywhere in different ways. And unfortunately, this series with the new moon does carry that through in some way. However, I will also say though that the thing that gives me hope about this new moon, even from a collective perspective, certainly from our own personal perspective, and I'll get into the personal component of it in a minute. If you look at the degrees of the new moon, it's 5 degrees and 38 minutes, right? And so if you look at Ceres, it's 2 degrees and 14 minutes. And so what that means is that this new moon is moving away from Ceres, right? So the sun actually was closer to Ceres, a couple of days ago, for instance. However, the point is that it's a conjunction, but the new moon is not building up towards this Ceres energy. It's moving away from it, right? And so that could be promising from the point of view of this new moon is leaving something behind. It's not building up towards it. It's actually moving away from it. And I think that's an important point. Furthermore, transiting Jupiter forms a trine to this gorgeous new moon in Leo. And so does Chiron, for that matter. And I really love that these two energies are forming a trine to the new moon. Now, Chiron just went retrograde a couple of days ago, which I briefly touched on in my previous video, and perhaps I'll come back and talk further again about that. But you can see here that Jupiter is stationary. It's also about to go retrograde. So Jupiter's going to go back into Pisces, for instance. And it's not going to complete this journey in terms of getting out of Pisces, I think, until sort of towards the end of the year or the beginning of 2023, somewhere around there. So we've got some unfinished business with Jupiter in Pisces. And spiritually, that's encouraging. However, on a global collective level, it can also be quite challenging from the point of view of the lens of Pisces and perhaps the sense of deceptions and disillusionments that go on, right, with things that are projected. And of course, anything that Jupiter touches, it expands, right? For better or for worse, it expands it. But in any case, I'll come back and talk a little bit more about Jupiter going retrograde and Chiron going retrograde. I just want to really focus on the new moon energy, but you can't really separate them, right? Because they are forming a trine aspect. A trine aspect is a harmonious energy between planetary energies, planetary alignments. So there's always a sense of things falling into place, things flowing, and perhaps even opportunities lining up, right? There's a sense of support. And in this case, Jupiter, who is the planet that's the planet that speaks to how we feel protected, right? It's like the energy that injects a sense of faith and a sense of feeling guided and protected in our life, right? So Jupiter is very important for that reason in this new moon chart, because it's forming a trine and it's in fire signs, and fire is all about inspiration in spirit. So there is a sense of inspiration that can come through, that can uplift us and give us a sense of confidence and a greater sense of faith in the bigger picture of things. Because if we don't have that outlook and we just kind of look at what appears on the surface level with these major life crises, situations that are going on, we'll be left feeling quite disheartened, because there's a lot of mess going on still on a lot of levels. But from the point of view of our own personal development and evolution and growth, the thing that the penny just dropped as I was sitting here looking at this chart and just processing it, and the thing that came to feel inside me as the main message of this new moon was this: that whilst this series can speak to all these bigger picture level things that I pointed to, which are not necessarily comfortable for any of us or pleasant. The Ceres conjunct the new moon, even though it's a separating aspect. It also, I think, highlights that matter of how I started talking about Leo at the very beginning of this this video, where I talked about the inner child and the ability to be playful with life and with ourselves and with others, and how we can lose contact with that, especially as we get older as well, you know, because of the presence of Saturn's energy, which directs our attention to work, duty, responsibility, and all the hard, difficult, challenging things that we have to face, you know, sort of every single day to some extent, right? So Leo being there with the new moon, I think, is a very powerful reminder that it might feel like we've lost contact with things we enjoy or the inner child, but this is then the opportunity relative to this lunation cycle to have us ask the question, the simple question, what do I do in my life that I actually can say I totally enjoy, I thoroughly enjoy it? I don't do this because I have to do it, because it's a sense of Saturn, you know, I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to tend to this, I've got these responsibilities, I've got to, you know, etc., etc. If you pull that away for a moment and just step into the heart center, which is Leo, of course, are you able to identify and recognize whether you are in touch with something that you really enjoy in your life? And if you are, fine, great. But if you're not, then how could you bring something back into your life? How could you, you know, inject some spirit, fire, energy, passion, enjoyment, right, into an activity? You know, it could be activities with children, because Leo is the sign of children. So it could be activities with your own children. That often brings up our own inner child. I've got a neighbor in this building who has 2 twin boys. They're gorgeous and they're only about 10 years old, and they are just, they're little Virgos actually, and I reckon they've got a fair bit of Leo in their chart because they are really playful. And they're so super friendly, and every time they see me they're like, hi Anastasia, you know, and they just try to engage with me. But I love those little moments in time, you know, because they bring out that inner child in me. Like I saw them the other day, and they were doing the real Mars Aries thing, you know, little boys being boys and sort of hiding from each other, and then they were going to bash each other up, as it were, not literally bash, but, you know, just playful little fights and stuff. And I was just watching them, and I was just seeing the classic archetype of Leo, Mars, Aries energy just right in front of my face. And I always think like that wherever I am, whatever I'm observing. I'm always able to make the connection with the archetypes in the particular situation I'm observing. And with Leo, children, playfulness, I mean, I suppose you have to be in the mood for that kind of thing as well. And, you know, it's, if you are, that's great. And if you're not, it might not be the right time for it. But regardless of that, the point is that Sun Ceres, it might show us where we've experienced what feels like we've lost that part of our life in some kind of way. We've lost the connection to just enjoying something very specific in our life. You know, we can't enjoy everything 24/7 because we've got all these other components to our life, our existence, our responsibilities, etc., right? And there's a time for everything, so to speak, right? But in any case, with Ceres and Leo energy here, the question becomes, have I lost that part that makes me feel like I'm really enjoying my life? And if I have, what is that? How can I get it back? Or how could I begin something that I really, really enjoy? And this is not to be taken lightly, because the heart center, which is Leo, enjoyment, which is Leo, it's like an injection of upliftment. You know, it's like the neurotransmitters in your brain, the ones that make you feel good and make you feel happy, light up when that Leo energy lights up. Think about it, when you do something that really makes you happy, right, that you really enjoy, you feel it in your heart, don't you? You know, when the opposite to that would be doing something and your heart is not in it. And when your heart is not in something, you can feel the difference between my heart is in this, it lights me up, it opens my heart, it lights up my heart, I feel joy, versus I freaking hate doing this. You know, it's like, it's exhausting, it's draining, I don't like it, you know, it's like just what I have to do. I mean, how much of a difference of a state of feeling is that, you know, one to the other? And this is where Leo takes us. It takes us into that territory. And staying young and youthful is not about how we look on the exterior, but it is about that playfulness of the heart center. That's one level. The next level that I want to take it to is that outside of this question of, here comes that sun, Leo, talking about Leo, and there he comes, shining really, really bright in my windows. So that's one level, the identification, recognition of, have I lost touch with enjoying life? Very simple. The next level is when we can address those issues, if they are indeed an issue. They may not be for a lot of people, but they may be for a lot of people as well. Once we've addressed that and recognize that, the next thing would be, okay, if we think about Goddess Ceres as being the mother, the nurturer, the principle of nurture or lack of nurture corresponds to Ceres. So if we've lacked nurture in our life through our caregivers, parents, etc., you'll find that Ceres is quite prominent in your chart, in most cases, if not all. So outside of the parental stuff, it's the nurture that we give to ourselves. So what are we nurturing here? We're nurturing our heart. We're nurturing the heart center that makes us feel alive. It's also about stepping deeper into the heart center to find a deeper alignment with Source, with our higher self, by accessing the heart center. Because through our life journeys and life experiences, particularly if we've had a pretty rough ride, the tendency is to close our heart off. The closing of the heart, it's very complex, but often it corresponds to having had so much disappointment in life, having been so hurt through life and situations and people. So the very natural thing, which doesn't serve us, but the very natural thing to do is to shut off. And that shutting off from life and love and trust is shutting off the heart. And that's what leads often to heart attacks for people, actually. It's the disconnection of that source heart center that lights up everything in our life, that gives us that sense of pleasure and playfulness and just enjoyment, you know, just being able to say, my heart is so in this. I mean, think to a situation in your life where you've done something or been engaged with something. It could have been a process, it could be a relationship, whatever. If your heart has been in it, it's brought you tremendous joy. That's what the heart opens us up to. It opens us up to joy and pleasure. And it, because it opens us up to that, it lightens us up. You know, you think about Leo corresponding to children, and if you observe children, for the most part, they are usually really playful, cheeky, funny, dramatic. They're just having a blast. That's why when we had the lockdowns here and they wouldn't allow children to go and play in the park, talk about Saturn doing a number, and talk about Pluto as well in Capricorn systems being opposite to Cancer, which is children and family being, imprisoned, which is what happened. We're imprisoned in our own homes. Taking away the essence of life for children, which is to be outside and play. So there's, we can even think about those things that have been going on for quite some time. So this is a time to somehow reconnect with that flame, that fire, that spirit, Leo, and find a sense of enjoyment in something that we do. But we have to do that to survive. We can't just be work, taking everything so seriously, not having a sense of pleasure or enjoyment in our life, whether that's in our relationships, whether that's with our children, whether that's with our own, some personal artistic thing that we like. It could be absolutely anything. I mean, what defines enjoyment? Something that lights up your heart. So the series there is a reminder that we might be experiencing a sense of loss around that because we've lost touch with that in some kind of way. And that would be not surprising given the narrative that's been playing out for the last nearly 3 years. There's been so much taken away in so many ways. And if you haven't conformed to the narrative, then, these systems and these narratives have tried to take away every single liberty and pleasure to try and break you psychologically so that you can conform to the narrative, of course. And I'm one of those people that didn't conform to the narrative, and it wasn't easy, it really wasn't easy. And I know there are many of you out there who went through the same experience, so you understand what I mean. But in any case, I didn't let it break me. I wouldn't allow something like that to break me. I have way too much trust and faith in divine source creation to all things. Jupiter in Sag, when you've got Jupiter in Sag natally, doesn't matter what's going on that 3D level, even if you look like you're staring at death, you just know on some other level that it's okay. It'll be okay. And that's more or less how I've felt the last 3 years, even though it's been really difficult in a lot of different ways. But this Leo energy here with Ceres is just, I think, again, just a powerful reminder of what we can reconnect with if indeed we've lost touch with just the general sense of enjoying something in our lives overall, right? Because we are bombarded with so much BS, so much rubbish, because of the controlling forces that are, that like to dominate the 3D reality. And Leo's season, which is coming up as well, as I said, is very much about that portal. But a lot of what I've spoken to really does describe things on that mundane level. But again, I just want to, try and just go that little bit deeper. And I suppose, I suppose I've done that really. The way I've spoken about that, I feel, is through the lens of not only asking the question of enjoyment and pleasure and, how much have I lost contact with those experiences in life because I've been all consumed by this or just shut down because of that, etc., etc. But how can I put this? How is my heart center radiating the power of love and light through me in the way I'm experiencing life and the way I'm seeing life? It's Ceres is asking us to tend to that heart core center within, which is much deeper than that personality level of playfulness and so forth. It's much, much deeper, because the opposite to that, again, as I briefly mentioned before, is to have our heart center closed. When our heart center is closed, we do not trust. We do not allow ourselves to really connect, because when we don't trust, we have a sense of fear. When you don't trust, there's a sense of fear there. And so the Leo energy invites us into just opening that place of our heart, towards life. Even if we've had challenging, difficult betrayals or whatever it's been, it's an opportunity. And it is Ceres there. So the Ceres implies there has been some loss, there has been some disconnect, and it might feel quite painful to reopen the heart. But that's the very thing we have to do to inject the nurturing side of Mother Ceres, Goddess, Mother of the Earth. That's what she gives us the opportunity to do here. And the Jupiter forming a trine injects some optimism, some faith, some confidence in journeying through this process. If this journey, this process speaks to you, then you will understand this. You'll just soak this up. It will be right for you. Of course, you need to look at where this new moon lands in your chart, right? What house it's in, because the house that it's in is going to highlight the area of life. The next month is going to be illuminated with the solar and lunar energy of this radiance of the lion heart. Now, in some cases, it could also be because we've had this Uranus squaring Saturn energy, which is the establishment versus being able to be true to ourselves, being able to make a decision based on what we feel aligns with our own authentic sense of self, which comes through our own investigations or explorations, as opposed to Saturn forcing X, Y, Z. And so there's this incredible spiritual, physical battle still with this Saturn Uranus still squaring each other. And it's going to come back to being even closer as Uranus moves forward and Saturn goes retrograde. And there is a build-up energy of the Mars-Uranus as well, which I spoke about in a previous video, so I won't go there again. But I've been alerted to already that, there's been a couple of accidents, just people who follow my work on YouTube and Facebook. They've indicated that they've had a friend or a family member have a serious car accident. In one case, there was a death, which was very heartbreaking to hear. But Uranus energy is it can be dangerous. It can be, and it is a build-up of some pretty intense energies. And so we're in the process of that now. It's look how close it is. Mars is at virtually 16 of Taurus, so it's coming up to be very close to that Uranus. And of course, the North Node is going to go backwards, so it's going to catch up with Uranus. So anyway, it's just 2 days away, right? Literally. So we've got the build-up of that as a backstory, if you like, of this new moon chart. We've got the Saturn square Uranus as bigger themes that speak to longer cycles. Remember, the new moon is really speaking to a 1 month cycle, and sometimes the new moon cycle can go by, and that particular lunation cycle might not have really activated anything super significant for you. It doesn't always have to be that every new moon has to be super, super significant, right? But it is significant from the point of view of that it's a new moon, so it's an opportunity each month to plant some seeds. And the seeds that I would plant with this lunation cycle is reconnecting with some sort of activity in my life that enables me to just have some enjoyment, feel a sense of fulfillment in my heart with something that I'm doing, right? As opposed to just feeling like I have to do it. And of course, the Chiron forming a trine here as well is also a really beautiful omen because it's a trine. Chiron has just gone retrograde. So we could say, the classic symbolism to me speaks to healing this lost inner child, Leo. Lost as in Ceres, separation, disconnection. Lost touch with that part of our life. Chiron is always about healing our deepest wounds. And whilst a lunation cycle, trine Chiron, is not going to address, the deep chironic issues that you've been holding on to for the last 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, it is a month that can address that zone, that area, can invite you in there. And the invitation is very supportive because the Chiron is trine the new moon and Jupiter is trine the new moon. And so that's very positive, right? And with Chiron, and I'll come back and talk about this in a more in-depth way. Because Chiron has this unusual elliptical orbit, what it tends to do is it can spend many, many years in one sign of the zodiac, and then it might spend far less in another sign. And it's quite significant, all right? Because what that could mean, for instance, if you track the Chiron cycle, which is 48 to 51 years, somewhere around there, whatever sign Chiron was in when you were born is going to determine when you have your first quarter square with Chiron. And then when you have the opposition, that is Chiron moving around your chart from the time you were born, creating the first quarter square, creating the opposition, creating the last quarter square. And there are other aspects in between, and they too are important, such as trines and sextiles. The squares are really potent though, as a square aspect is. The nature of a square is conflict and tension. So naturally, the square and opposing forces are going to activate things that are extremely painful in us. So when you are looking at Chiron going retrograde at the moment, just remember to pay attention to that backdrop as well. Well, where is Chiron in my chart? Where is what is Chiron? Where is Chiron in relation to my own Chiron at the moment? Where is it in this cycle? Is it in a trine? Is it in a sextile, a square, or an opposition? And if it is at one of those points, then this lunation cycle could prove to be even more important for you because you're in one of those passageways relative to Chiron, which is all about healing very, very deep wounds. And I've said this before and I'll say it again. To really access Uranus, you have to go into Chiron's cave, your cave, the cave of where you hold the deepest wounds that it could be no one knows about them. It could just be your own thing altogether. It just depends where Chiron is in your chart and what it's doing in your chart relative to what those wounds are, right? But this is a time to go into the cave because Chiron's gone retrograde, means going within, go into the cave of your wounds, especially if Chiron is forming a sextile, trine, conjunction. You could be having a Chiron return, oppositional square at the moment. Then this lunation cycle kicks something off for you pretty importantly. And with Ceres there is a painful component here, and Chiron's painful as well. But we've got the fire energies being emphasized, Leo and Aries, that is. which is always energy that uplifts us and inspires us and gives us the fuel and energy and desire and passion and excitement to get active about things, right? Whatever they may be. What else did I want to say about this new moon? I think, just one other thing. I've recently been revisiting what's called looking at a chart from the point of view of what chart shape it is. It's something that I learned a long time ago, but I just been having a few chats with my mentor / best friend, who I speak to pretty much every day, about everything, about life, about how I'm feeling, about astrology, about whatever, anything I'm going through that's difficult. And likewise, he shares with me as well. And so we're very lucky we've got each other to be able to have that sharing and those conversations and understand it through the wisdom of the mother of all science, astrology. So blessed. Anyway, we were talking about chart shapes, and I'm bringing that back into my observations a lot more. This particular chart that you see on the screen, it's based in Australia, so never mind the position of everything, because it'll look different based on your location, unless you are from Melbourne, Australia, for instance. But in any case, whatever location you're in, the planets will all still be in the same sign and same degree. They'll just be located in different houses, right? So that means that the chart shape doesn't change, okay? So the chart shape is a locomotive. Now, the locomotive is fascinating, and that's actually the chart shape of my own chart, and it's very common in the charts of astrologers, by the way. I suppose hence that's why I was born to be an astrologer, to speak the language of the stars. And Pluto is the driver of this locomotive chart. And it is the case in my own chart. Pluto is the driver of the locomotive chart shape in my own chart. It makes complete sense. If you were just to read what it says about the locomotive, it just describes my whole life. It's amazing. So what is the locomotive? It's a little bit complex, but without going into too much of that, perhaps I'll come back and do a video on chart shapes and just share some comments around that, because it's well worth really paying attention to it. But in this case, in the new moon chart, locomotive, Pluto is the driver. There'll always be a planet that drives the locomotive. That's like the boss of the chart, if you like, right? The driver, the engine, gets all the wheels turning, is the decider of everything that's going to happen. So Pluto, being the agent of transformation, is obviously saying that this lunation cycle is somehow tied into a chart shape that is defined by locomotive. Pluto is the driver, the big boss. And so there must be something in this lunation cycle that's going to ultimately be spoken through Pluto's deciding, driving intentions about this lunation cycle. And the most obvious feature is there's a transformative quality here as well. See, if we didn't look at this level, the chart shape, and identify that Pluto is the driver, then we wouldn't associate Pluto in this chart as necessarily being a prominent sort of feature, because it's not. It's sitting at 27 Capricorn retrograde. Forget about the house position. I mean, yeah, it doesn't have an immediate obvious correlation to the new moon, okay? But now we know, because of the chart shape and because Pluto is the driver of the locomotive shape, it's injecting something into this lunation cycle which has to do with transformation. And given, therefore, that Pluto and Ceres, which are still, look, at the end of the day, Pluto's opposite these energies here anyway, right? But it's an opposition out of sign, okay? What's the closest one? It's Ceres. And that's important because Ceres and Pluto are two characters that belong to one of the most powerful myths in mythology. And the other part of that story is Persephone. Ceres had a daughter called Persephone. And Persephone, I think at the moment is she's in Cancer. I think she's still in Cancer. Let's have a look. Because I know that they were there all together during the full moon, but I didn't look today to see where Ceres has moved on, Persephone has moved on to. So let me just have a look. Yeah, she's 26 Cancers, so she's yet to catch up to, oh God. Okay, yeah, that's really interesting. All right, just to add another spanner in the story, transiting Persephone at the moment, and I have touched on this anyway, is 26 degrees of Cancer, so down here, right? And she's coming up to an opposition to Pluto. So I think, therefore, that this new moon it is going to be a cycle that perhaps will continue to emphasize some of the themes that are going on the collective 3D reality around food, matters of food. I think that's going to be really important. And you know, in some cases, for some people, it might have to do with custodial battles, children, things like that, court cases involving children relative to custodial rights of parents is Pluto Ceres themes, 100%. So given that Ceres has already been opposite Pluto and transiting Persephone is coming to this opposition to Pluto, that must be creating some sort of effect in people's lives around those issues, if those issues are indeed taking place. Now, I don't know, because I'd have to speak to 8.5 billion people to see how many people are going through that. But in any case, that's an implication with these energies. And outside of that, it's an implication around our own personal, deep spiritual, psychological transformations that do include processes of losing something, detachment, things like that, right? And I guess the other matter, of course, is that, there's a pretty heavy dose of fixed energy with Mars, Uranus, North Node, Urania, Goddess Urania is up here in Taurus as well. And then Ceres, Sun, Moon, Mercury, that's Vulcan. The red arrow is Vulcan, a body that's used in esoteric astrology. Strong fixed energies, right? Of course, the Sun, as it continues around its journey in Leo, it's going to, form a square to these, isn't it? So that's going to be an interesting time of the month. But in any case, fixed energy can be really powerful in being able to stand with, in other words, situations that need that level of perseverance and persistence. And the flip side, of course, to that coin is the inability to move into a different situation, needing to let go of something and finding it very challenging to step into something that might be more uncertain, because fixed energy tends to hang on to whatever it is they're standing with. And whilst at times that can be beneficial, at other times that can be a disadvantage. And so when it's on the disadvantage scale, it's experienced as a sense of great tension. And this will come up quite strongly when the Sun gets to about 16, 17, 18 Leo and forms a square to that Uranus. So that's an interesting thing that I just kind of thought about right now as I'm observing and thinking, but that's, a bit later on in the month. But in any case, it's not part of the new moon cycle, as it were, but these fixed energies are, because they are very prominent. Okay. So yes, I guess the final message is, I did forget to look at something. Where is my... I just wanted to see if the Sabian symbol gives us a remarkable thing. Sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. So, the 6th degree of Leo. A conservative, old-fashioned lady is confronted by a hippie girl. Keynote: the need to transcend our subservience to fashion in morals as well as in clothes. That's interesting because, let me just read further. This refers to the ever-changing pageant of social values as ideals of human relationships succeed one another, one generation facing in the next an antithetic picture of what it has been brought up to consider worthwhile and decent. The confrontation may lead to great bitterness, yet it should show us the impermanence of most of what society impresses upon our collective mentality. So there's an indication there of being fixed about something, right? Which is Leo in terms of the fixedness, the fixed energy, and the need to remove and let go of some of the social constructs, perhaps, that have been imprinted in our psyche, you could say, right? Because the keynote is the need to transcend our subservience to fashion in morals as well as in clothes. And the clothes part has got to be speaking to, how we clothe ourselves relative to what the face that we present, right? The face that we present to the world, and how this Sabian symbol is saying we've got to transcend some stuff that we've been imprinted with, and that defines the social sort of constructs that we perceive and have belief towards. That's how I read that. So that's important, because that then just really only affirms the Ceres being there, which, when I said before that the best thing we can take from Ceres being conjunct this new moon is to go to the true essence of our heart, of things that we love and believe in, to open that up, to reconnect with that, to go to the heart of something. Any situation in your life, go to the heart of it, because the truth is there. So that's how I see this Leo new moon. That's pretty inspiring as an end note, I think. So perhaps I'll leave it there. There were other aspects of things going on. There was a Venus-Lilith conjunction in Cancer, but I have briefly touched on that in a previous video. So those are the highlights for this lunation cycle. Hope you found this interesting and useful. Leave your comments and questions below. Always love to hear from you guys, and let me know how you're doing. And yeah, if this new moon is hitting something off in your chart, share the comments. Everyone learns from each other here, so it's a platform that I see as a sharing space, a respectful sharing space, because we all have different perspectives and opinions on things as well. As long as we can respect those, then we're all doing good. Okay, happy Leo season, happy new moon in Leo. Happy Lionsgate. I think I'll come back and give some energy to that portal, 8th of the 8th. It's the 25th of July today. I should be able to do that. Okay. In any case, I'll see you guys soon. Much love, and open that heart and just let that lion roar, you know, in whatever direction it needs to. That the lion roar is can be scary, but it's also what's going to make you fucking feel alive, right? Okay, bye for now.